Welcome to the new and improved Sundry Sports. We start with Cowboys Wire from somewhere. Tristan Hill's bad rap may be a bit premature, shouldn't be written off yet. There the Dallas Cowboys sat, lucked into the perfect scenario. No one in their right mind figured they'd be this fortunate when they came on. I think this is talking about the draft. I'm not sure why Tristan Hill has a bad rap. Let's check it out. When they came on the clock for the first time in the draft, the team sat back and let team after team make selections without making an attempt to move up, and now had a clear chance to boost their talent base with not just one player inexplicably sliding to them, but they had choice. As mock draft after mock draft played out in the weeks leading up to draft weekend, it was wholly inconceivable the Cowboys would ever be this fortunate. Inconceivable. Yet there they were, on the clock, ready to seize the gift handed to them by the football gods. Only the Cowboys zigged instead of zagged. Oh, you thought this was a retelling of how the club selected CeeDee Lamb? Silly rabbits. This is the tale of how just a year earlier, Dallas passed on the obvious choice of any of three safeties in Taylor Rapp, Nasir Adderley, or Juan Thornhill, and instead selected defensive tackle Tristan Hill. Okay. Entering the 2019 draft, the safety position was largely seen as the Achilles heel of the Dallas defense. The prior season had come to an inglorious end at the hands of the Los Angeles Rams' rushing attack in the division round. Lasting memories of strong safety Jeff Heath looking the wrong direction as Goff scrambled for the crucial third down conversion in the fourth quarter are etched in fans' cerebrals. In 2019, the 2019 draft was celebrated to have several safeties who could start immediately. But after trading their first-round pick mid-season for wide receiver Amari Cooper, most felt Dallas was too far back at number 58 to grab any of the top 6 prospects at the position. So when their time on the clock came and not one, not two, but 3 of them sat waiting, it felt like the jackpot to the fan base. Only Dallas didn't select any of them, despite a breakout season for Antwaun Woods, nose tackle. Nose tackle Antwaun Woods, big money and a couple years remaining in Tyrone Crawford, Malik Collins and free agent signings Christian Covington and Kerry Hyder, the club selected Hill. The fuse of the fans' short temper was lit before Hill ever donned the proverbial draft cap, and then he failed to change their minds. Hill's time at UCF. Drafted out of Central Florida, Hill had an interesting story that raised red flags in some quarters. Recruited as a 30 front nose tackle, Hill showed great promise as an 18-year-old, notching a sack and 5 TFLs in 9 games. Tackled for losses. 5 tackles for tackle for losses. He stepped that up to 2 sacks as a sophomore, but a coaching and scheme change moved him from budding prospect to a bench player. Coach Scott Frost moved him to the bench in a 40 front, and Hill started just 1 game, though he notched 3 sacks and 10.5 tackles for loss. There was plenty of discussion about Hill's reported attitude problem as the reason he landed in Frost's doghouse, but defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli spent extensive time researching with the young prospect pre-draft and convinced the team's brass he was a diamond in the rough. Marinelli, now in Las Vegas as the Raiders DL coach, also convinced the club to draft Taco Charlton, a player with apparent self-motivation issues who is now on his 3rd NFL team in 4 years, after being Dallas's first-round pick in 2017. He was really all in on Hill, too. Hill described his unique relationship with Marinelli at the 2019 draft class luncheon. Quote, leading up to the draft, he helped me with the whole process. You know, he was really that person I could talk to. Call on the phone. He'd call me, hey, how you doing? Who talked to you? He wanted to know the inside stuff, too, you know. With him, having him, you know, kind of watching over me and guide me through, it helped out tremendously. And when I was picked here, I mean, not a lot of people get to go to the team they want to, so it was a blessing. That's nice. Hill's first season and what's next? Hill couldn't crack the rotation, though, and was inactive the first 2 games of the season. He saw snaps in 4 of the next 5 contests and was generally ineffective, seeing his snaps decrease from 34 in Week 3 to just 13 in Week 7. He'd sit for several weeks before reemerging a bit, playing just 36 snaps from Week 12 on. He recorded just 4 tackles on the season, 2 quarterback hits, and no sacks. That's about as big a disappointment for a team's first pick in a draft as one can imagine. But all hope isn't lost, or at least it shouldn't be. First and foremost, Hill's extremely young, still the youngest member of Dallas's defensive line at just 22 years old. Both defensive linemen drafted in 2020, Oklahoma's Neville Gallimore is already 23, and Hill is 2 months behind Utah's Bradley Anae. Anaya? There was plenty of talk about Hill's skill set when he was drafted, but he left school a year early rather than spend another season in Frost's doghouse. If one views Hill as a draft pick who spent his senior season interning with an NFL club, gaining actual experience practicing against professionals, then the outlook on someone with his physical gifts warrant consideration as a redemption story. Like Gallimore, Hill's best trait is an insanely quick first step. If the rest of the package can come together, that elite trait is one that can be the basis of a solid NFL career. The media could not be played. Hill's quick first step jumps off the screen. Tough for a center to handle that kind of quickness / explosiveness off the snap. Hill can certainly penetrate and play in the backfield. I see that. After spending a year with Rod Marinelli, Hill will now work with defensive lineman wizard Jim Tomsula. The latter will be incorporating plenty of 30-front principles, which is where Hill showed a lot of promise at Central Florida. With a year of added strength and lowered expectations, he could surprise in 2020. Everyone wanted a safety, and then safety play in 2019 was underwhelming, further exacerbating the issue of Hill's selection and lack of contribution. With a gluttony of talent now ahead of him, starting with free agent signings Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, no one thinks Hill will be much of a contributor, and it could turn into the perfect opportunity for him. Cool. Cowboys news. No fan games could cripple Dallas's financials, Hill's second act. Tristan Hill had a hard time cracking the rotation last season as a rookie, but with Jim Tomsula on the staff and a year of something. What does that have to do with no fans and Dallas's financials? Cowboys news. Elliott helped force Goodell's hand. Gallup, Cooper, excellence shines through. The Dallas Cowboys continue their quest for a 6th Lombardi trophy this season. Today, take a look on wide receiver Michael Gallup, along with Amari Cooper. Stashed away in year 1, Cowboys defensive end Yelks, I'm assuming it's Yelks, could emerge in 2020. The Dallas Cowboys drafted 7 players and added 15 UDFAs in 2020 undrafted free agents. But 23-year-old second-year defensive end Jalen Yelks, is it Jelks? Jalen Jelks? That doesn't sound good. Will also be among those looking to impress. More headlines. Cowboys' Tyrone Crawford hasn't been run out of town, so he might as well ball. Cowboys' Elliott among black NFL stars in iconic video calling out league on police brutality response. Come on, guys. Cowboys news. McCarthy back in Dallas. Defensive line rotation a major puzzle. Dallas Cowboys face mask. NFL face masks are the perfect accessory for football fans. Where to get them? 6 Cowboys in danger of release due to COVID-19 impact on NFL. Prescott speaks out as Cowboys organization remains silent on George Floyd protests. Blah, 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 blah. USA Today. It's Cowboys Wire brought to you by USA Today Sports Media Group. Moving on from that, it's the ESPN Daily, brought to you by ESPN. Good morning. Today is National Best Friends Day. That feels like as good an excuse as any to reach out to your homies. It's also a solid reason for me to showcase friends who are banding together to advocate for change, like DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook, or Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Here's your ESPN Daily. Do we really have to do this? Just doesn't seem like actual sports news. We're just grasping at straws. Listen up. It's going down at Disney World. The NBA, okay, this is sports news, good. The NBA is finally set to return in July, as players and owners have agreed on a plan for the comeback. 22 teams will enter the Walt Disney World bubble, and one team will leave with the NBA title. But each franchise has questions. Which teams actually stand to benefit from the new playoff format? What's the fate of those facing play-in games? Where does the draft lottery come into play? On today's episode of the ESPN Daily Podcast, NBA insider Zach Lowe explains what's at stake in the East and West. Plus, which bubble teams could make it in, and whether or not this season's NBA champion deserves the dreaded asterisk due to the weirdness of the situation. Things to care about. College football players speak out. I don't care. I care a little bit, but I don't also. On Wednesday, more than 60 Missouri football players led a rally, then walked from campus to the Boone County Courthouse in Columbia to register to vote. It was just one of dozens of protests by college football players that have taken place across the country since George Floyd's death. Well, see, that is actually, that's a good thing to do. That might be constructive, registering to vote. If you actually go out and you actually vote, and you don't continue to vote the same problem people into office, if you actually vote for, a change, the change that you want, not the change that some people might be telling you need. Players from Missouri, Iowa, Florida State, North Carolina, Minnesota, Clemson, and others have been lauded for taking a stand, but they didn't just start using their voices for meaningful change this week. They've been doing so for years, only now their schools are listening. Players' actions over the past week underscored not just a massive call for justice and action, but also highlighted a major shift as athletes are protesting and seizing control of the conversation. The power dynamics have shifted, the status quo has been unbalanced, and it's been tipped into the favor of student-athletes, former North Carolina linebacker Jake Lawler said. The imbalance Lawler refers to is new territory for many college football players. They have long been shielded by athletic departments and encouraged to keep their views on everything from race to NCAA regulations private, either due to pressure from administrators, coaches, and teammates, or fear of backlash from fans. See, I'm not so sure that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, because I've said before about how one major problem with society is the fact that we have things like Twitter and Facebook where everybody can put out their own opinion and the ones that bother to make the most stink are the ones that get what they want, even if they're actually a small minority. So it's not necessarily better for everybody to be able to say whatever they want. Okay, yes, First Amendment, yes, everybody can say whatever they want, but I'm saying for everybody to have the exposure of the whole world having to hear or see what they say. You have the right to say what you want. You don't necessarily have to have the right to be heard by fucking everybody. In the recent past, when college football players publicly voiced their beliefs on social issues, the response from outsiders was vocal and angry, and too often athletic departments chose to appease offended donors and fans rather than support the athletes who spoke out. If you have the ability to do what's right, you have the responsibility to do what's right. I just can't be silent anymore, Lawler said. I can't beat around the bush. I will be direct and honest. It's not divisive. My message is about unity and about toppling a system that has oppressed black citizens for hundreds of years. That's not about unity because we're not united in your mistaken belief that the system, the legal system, that the system is still oppressing you. That ended. I'm just saying. Now we have things that actually try to favor black students, such as I can never remember the term. When they take into account your color to see if you get in college or not. Action. Anyway, whatever. It's just, the only people that are oppressing black people are black people. They're parents who tell them this is how it is, even though it's really not. How MLB can fix its labor fight. When it comes to the ongoing negotiations, and did I finish reading that? Yes. When it comes to the ongoing negotiations in MLB, things are, well, not pretty. I'll even take it a step further and say they're flat out ugly. The owners are incredibly frustrated with what they perceive to be the intransigence and lack of imagination in the current union leadership, while the players believe the owners have lied to them repeatedly about their money. Yeah, it's always about the money for the baseball players, apparently. They don't care about their game, they don't care about their craft, they don't care about their skills, they don't care about their fans. All they care about is their money. It's too late to save Major League Baseball from exposing all the toxicity of the working relationship between the owners and players. The chance to present a united front in the face of national trauma is gone. The opportunity to own the sports stage for a lot of the summer has been squandered. Baseball has generated more vitriol than praise in recent months as it attempts to navigate its return without an ounce of compromise. But it's not all doom and gloom for the boys of summer and their owners. There is still a chance to move the game forward and generate a product collaboratively. If the owners and players attempt an honest and earnest postmortem of their own actions and decisions as soon as the armistice is forged, and that's probably all it will be, a short-term cessation of hostilities, and uncover the mistakes made on both sides, they can ensure they aren't repeated when the two sides resume sparring in the pivotal year of 2021, when the collective bargaining agreement is set to expire. In the meantime, Buster Olney has some suggestions for how both sides can fix MLB's growing labor feud. Things to watch. Joe Rogan. I don't buy it for a second. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Conor McGregor announced his retirement on Twitter. Again? Yes, again. But I thought McGregor was going to take his talents to UFC's Fight Island. Me too, friends. Me too. According to the Notorious, the lack of exciting potential opponents led to his third retirement from the fight game. If, despite him doubling down on his declaration by posting a retirement cake Sunday on Instagram, you're still skeptical that we've truly seen the last of McGregor billionaire strutting around the octagon, you're not alone. Joe Rogan has thoughts. James Conner. Pop, that's yours. Pittsburgh Steelers running back James Conner is providing us with the content we need. On Saturday, Conner posted a video showing the moment that he surprised his dad with a brand new truck. His father's reaction, which goes from disbelief to giddiness and ends with him exclaiming, "Can't nobody tell me nothing now," is priceless. You go, James Conner. That's nice. Overheard. We have been beaten down for so many years. It sucks your soul. You can't accept it anymore. This is a tipping point. We need to make a stand. Michael Jordan on what moved him to donate $100 million to organizations dedicated to racial equality. So Michael Jordan. Fucking Michael Jordan. Who everybody knows. Who most people, probably everybody, loves. Is talking about being beaten down. That's what is so sad. That's what's so tragic about this mentality. You can still feel that way while being Michael fucking Jordan. And that's not a mentality that is caused by reality. Your mentality is not based in reality. Your mentality is based in culture, not white culture or, American culture as a whole. It's just your own culture. You are what is dividing us because you have to have your own culture, and you can't even recognize that your own culture is what's running you down, what's beating you down. It's tragic. Remember when, on this date in 1996, Warren Morris cemented his place in College World Series lore. LSU was trailing Miami 8-7 with 2 outs in the ninth inning when the Tigers' second baseman, who had injured his wrist earlier in the season and lost some power at the plate after missing 42 games, connected on the first pitch he saw for a 2-run homer over the right field wall. Miami's squad featured 2 future major leaguers in Pat Burrell and Alex Cora, but it was Morris who became a CWS legend. In the immortal words of Santana Moss, big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. Until next time, remember, Giannis Antetokounmpo says winning on and off the court over the weekend. Stays winning on and off the court. Over the weekend, Antetokounmpo and many of his Bucks teammates joined a Black Lives Matter march in Milwaukee. Oh, good for them. See, over the weekend, off the court, not during their job. Not while they're supposed to be doing their job. Not while they're supposed to be being paid to do a certain job in their own time. So good for them. The reigning NBA MVP, who was spotted handing out water to fellow protesters, addressed the crowd with a powerful message. We want change, we want justice. I don't want my kid to have hate in his heart. Well, good, so don't teach him to. We're all the same, we're all human beings. This has been your ESPN Daily for Monday, June 8th, 2020. Don't teach your kids to have hate in their heart. And they won't. And don't allow the other people in your community to teach them to have hate in their heart. Sharing is caring. If you have a friend who likes to stay in the know, why not send them this newsletter and have them sign up? Blah, blah, blah. Follow ESPN. We're everywhere you are. Okay. Yahoo Sports, Read and React, brought to you by Yahoo Sports for Monday, June 8th. Did I say that? This is Monday, June 8th. Trending. Michael Irvin says Cowboys owe Dak Prescott back pay. Whatever. This is getting so old. NASCAR driver faints mid-interview after intensely hot race. U of Cincinnati players want Marge Schott's name removed from field. Why? Was she racist? Okay, let's see. Cincinnati baseball players, including Kevin Youkilis, want to remove Marge Schott's name from field. Want the school to distance itself from Marge Schott. A number of Cincinnati alumni, including former Major League All-Star Kevin Youkilis, have endorsed a petition to remove Schott's name from the team's baseball stadium. The petition was started by former University of Cincinnati player Jordan Ramey, who urged the school to stop celebrating Schott. We have a responsibility to develop our kids for the future. Black kids should not be made to play and represent a name such as hers, and white kids should not be celebrating her legacy subconsciously. What is it? Tell me, who is this bitch? As a community of former and current players, staff, students, alums, and Cincinnatians alike, we will not be promoting her or her legacy any longer. Schott was suspended and fined multiple times by Major League Baseball for making both racist and anti-Semitic remarks during her time as the Cincinnati Reds owner. Okay. One of those suspensions came after Schott said Adolf Hitler was good at the beginning, but he just went too far. Oh. She sold her controlling interest in the team in 1999, but remained on as a minority partner. Schott died in 2004. Youkilis, a Cincinnati alumnus, weighed in on the petition Sunday. He explained he had an opportunity to have the field named after him, but passed on it after learning his name would sit next to Schott's. Nathan Moore, a Cincinnati pitcher who just graduated from the school, also wrote a statement saying he cannot understand why our great university would not address the removal of this hurtful and offensive commemoration of racism. Ramey's petition currently has more than 3,400 signatures. He is seeking 5,000. The University of Cincinnati has not addressed the petition or comments from their former players at this time. Well, that makes more sense than, tearing down statues of General Lee or Texas Rangers, of all things. So, Okay. Kurt Thomas, first male U.S. gymnast to win gold, dies at 64. The balance of power in sports has shifted. By Jay Busby. Why am I again reading about the balance of power in sports? Morning, friends. We're living in interesting times, aren't we? The sports world today isn't this, I wouldn't call it interesting. Interesting isn't the word I would use. The sports world today isn't the same as it was a week ago. The protests consuming America have swept up sports in their wake, and the result is a level of social awareness and commitment not seen since integration. The balance of power in sports has shifted in massive, foundational ways. Just consider what we've seen in the last few days. The NFL, the most likely American sport and the one most likely to shrug off shifting social tides, not only acknowledging the presence of a growing social justice movement, but admitting its own wrongdoing and not taking the concerns of black players seriously enough before. College football players rising up and calling out their coaches and the coaches apologizing. In the not-too-distant past, like, say, May, a college player who accused his coach of lying the way Marvin Wilson did of new Florida State coach Mike Norvell could expect a one-way ticket back to his hometown before nightfall. Now FSU and other institutions are taking the concerns of their players seriously, or they risk watching their players jump to institutions that will. It just sounds like we're going to end up with a lot of uppity, arrogant players who can't be controlled, which, in the framework of a team sport, yes, the people in charge should have a level of control. NASCAR, committing to the social justice movement through a combination of pledges, protest, and I Can't Breathe t-shirts on the grid. NASCAR. Prior to Sunday's race in Atlanta, at least, okay, yes, this time, the whole I Can't Breathe thing, yes, was perfectly valid. For a sport that still has an active subset of fans who bring Confederate flags to races, this was nothing less than revolutionary. Because the Confederate flag is just always racist, no matter what. It couldn't possibly be, maybe you had ancestors that got roped into the fight. They didn't actually know or support the fact that they were fighting for slavery. They were fighting for their hometowns. They were fighting for their families. They were fighting for their friends. And that was their flag. They're just because the war was for slavery, to slavery or not to slavery, doesn't mean that everybody who fought in the war was complicit in the causes. They were doing their jobs. Oh, okay, yes, now I sound like a Nazi apologist. The Nazis were just doing their jobs. No. They were fighting for their homes because the fight was in their front yards. The fight was at their home. Whatever. Critics are saying these statements and other similar ones are being made under duress, an attempt to keep up with the day's headlines. That's true on its face. Few of these players, teams, and leagues had stepped up to this degree before now. But genuine or coerced, the winds of change are blowing. Will leagues carry through with the sort of meaningful change they're vowing to right now? Depends on how you define meaningful. For some, we'll see significant changes. For others, they'll try to move on from all this as quickly as they can without attracting too much attention. Change often comes slowly and then all at once, in a dizzying array of statements and actions that can leave everyone spinning. We're in one of those moments right now as a society, and sports, one way or another, always reflects society. Players get more socially active. Teams tolerate less of the bad behavior that's taken place in the past. Leagues work to reshape their image and attract new fans. Granted, whether you think this change is too much or not enough is up to you, but the change is here, it's happening, and the next time players take the field or court, the world's going to look a lot different than it did in the last time the scoreboard clock hit zeros. Let me just say, look, while there may be a lot of things that I don't know about what goes on in college or professional sports, as far as the professional sports go, For decades and decades, they have been making their players rich. Many black players get rich. So I can't imagine that they really have much of a leg to stand on, such as Michael Jordan. That being said, I am always sort of against change just because I don't like it. Although I do recognize that change sometimes is good, but a lot of change, people have a tendency to go overboard, is what I'm saying. Change for an actual reason, change because something is not right and should be fixed, is good. Like, for instance, in police departments, the change should be police holding each other more accountable, the good ones speaking up more, and the bad ones not being protected. But change just for the sake of change is not necessarily a good thing. I'm just saying, too much of anything is a bad thing. That's true, even for things like change. You gotta temper yourself. So, a dizzying array of change coming all at once, a dizzying array of statements and actions that can leave everyone spinning. No, that doesn't sound smart. Game plan. Black athletes should take inspiration from 1967 meeting. NCAA hammers Oklahoma State, which doesn't bode well for others. How a rogue employee forced the NFL to turn a new page. I don't want to read that. Like water, very fast water. The new ESPN 30 for 30 Be Water, the story of Bruce Lee, premiered last night and featured his vintage bit of filmmaking from Game of Death, where Lee squared off against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was quite a scene. Okay. Thanks for reading today's issue of Read and React. Blah, blah, blah. That's all. Sundry Sports for today is over.